If you don't know why you're here, it's because we have Shawn Farquhar and Jon Ornoy, who are the creators behind Lost in the Shuffle, which is a feature documentary that's coming out really soon and will be a treat. We're going to talk all about it tonight, and I guess we'll get started. I've got it queued up. We'll just watch a short trailer for it, and you can get familiar if you're not, and even if you are. I've watched it several times, and it continues to be entertaining. So jump in.
I've known no other world than magic. From a young age, all I experienced was magic. Going to school, I saw magic in everything. I can't imagine not being a magician. The workshop is where I basically design and create new ideas. And so I've got table saws and skill saws, band saws. I got a laser back here. That's my joy. This is where I thrive. I think magicians are drawn to playing cards because they're easily accessible. It's the gateway trick to magic. Secondly, the audience accepts it because it's a regular household item that just about everybody has. And what's great about magic and cards together is it elicits an emotion, like you think of Las Vegas when you see a deck of cards, or maybe you think of a smoky back room where there's a cheat like the Maverick ripping you off, or the Sting where there's an entire con going on. It's been going on forever. Magic and playing cards have this huge relationship, and it's like the universal tool of magic. Now, as a magician, I don't usually look at playing cards. I'm surrounded by them, but I use them as a tool. I don't look at the designs. And now I realize those designs can be inspirational and creative. On a recent tour of France, I took a day's vacation. I went sightseeing to a medieval castle called Chateau en Bois, and there I saw a symbol that I was so familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I realized I'd seen it thousands of times. It appears in the King of Hearts. You see, experts will tell you that the cards are named after famous people, like King David, Alexander the Great, and Julius Caesar, and that the King of Hearts is Charlemagne. But what if those experts have it wrong? What if there's a connection between Chateau en Bois and the king with the sword running through his head? And what if that connects us to Charles VIII, a king who mysteriously died at the chateau 500 years ago? I need to return to France. I need to learn more about the history of a deck of cards and the designs and where they came from, because I think hidden in that deck of cards are clues to a 500-year-old cold case murder.
Okay.
Very nice.
So yeah, there we go. Bit of streaming issue. I'm asking a lot of my computer right. Uh, but so yeah, where do we begin? There's a perfect. Where do you begin with a project like research, inspiration? How did this really all come about?
Great question. A few years back, I saw a lecture at a 4F convention, and one of the people really struck a chord. But we wanted to be more than the murder mystery. I wanted it to be. I love John's term. He says it's a love letter to magic. And so we wanted to talk to other magicians and ask them what their relationship with a deck of cards was like. John said to me, pick your top 4 guests that we could interview and ask them to perform and, talk about magic. And I said, and then he says, then we'll get another 4 for when they say no, and we'll just go down the list until we get 4. Right? Yeah. So I went, well, we're doing cards. It's Juan Tamariz. We've got to have Richard Turner. I really love Michael Vincent in England and Alexandra Duvivier in France. That was my hit list of 4. And we contacted them, and they all said yes. It was crazy start. It was like, really? And they were like, yeah, they just love the idea. and they don't know the whole murder mystery thing, which is great because I want to kind of bring those things out to them when I meet them, because I really want to see what the reaction is when you realize that that deck of cards you have in your hands is actually more than just, a plaything and something that we use for magic. It's actually got a historical significance to it.
I
Did everybody here know that when you look at those four queens, that the one queen faces the wrong direction?
Yeah. I brought this up earlier before you came in, and people said that they knew about this, but there was a routine that Kostya Kimlat put out a while ago called Killed the King of Hearts. And this is the kind of thing, like, I've seen a lot of these things, but I'd never seen anyone really delve into it beyond just like, oh yeah, this is a cool thing about it. Yeah, so I'm interested to see what you've uncovered.
Funny, I've been working on it about the same length of time as Kostya had when we met. He came and did a lecture here in Vancouver, and he pitched his Who Killed the King. And in the parking lot in front of a Boston Pizza for like the next hour, I just went through everything about, no, but you don't know about this, and you didn't know this has it. Have you seen this? And he was like, whoa. He says, I got a card trick. And he's a really creative guy. He actually reached out to me because I said, I want to make sure you get credit, knowing that, when you and I talked, it was something I already had, but I really love it and think, yeah, there are so many little details in it that and you can see they got it wrong right from the start when when they start naming who all the kings are and everything. There's no facts to any of that. Just some person wrote it down one day and everybody went, oh yeah, that's it. A perfect example is the card says Charles. The earliest cards with a name on them say Charles, but all the experts will tell you it's Charlemagne. So why didn't they write Charlemagne? They wrote Charles. And the king that's supposed to be Charlemagne, Charlemagne was old, really old, but the artist depicts that king as the youngest king. If you look at it, he doesn't have a beard. The rest of them do. Charlemagne had a beard that went right down to his crotch. So somewhere somebody has said, oh, they didn't mean Charles, they meant Charlemagne. So we're going to say it's Charlemagne. And ever since then, everybody says that's history. And I'm like, no, it's just somebody wrote something and we accepted it as history.
Yeah, I think I find it really interesting the kind of creative process. Coming from a film background, it's a highly collaborative kind of thing. Even on this project, which is a smaller kind of documentary, there's still going to be dozens of people who bring their specific creative skills to this. But I find the creative process that Shawn goes through as someone who largely creates everything by himself, built his own theater, writes all his own patter, comes up with everything, builds all his own things, to be really interesting. And the fact that that even at this stage of his career, he is still finding new creative territories of mind from things that are very familiar to him, is pretty cool to me. And that's something that I really want to discuss with all the people that we have in the film. People who devoted their lives and their creative practices to working with a deck of cards, and how is it that you keep on finding this new inspiration and creative motivation from something that's so familiar is really interesting to me.
Yeah, I love that whole creative process thing. I want to ask each of my guests, the other candidates on there, I want to ask them what their favorite plots in magic are and where it began. Like maybe the Travelers, right? And they'll be like, well, what's the first Travelers that you ever, performed? And then where did you take it? And what was your process to get to it? Then I want to actually learn off camera how to do some of the stuff that they do. So towards the end of the film, I want to take the different plots that these artists give to me and mix them all together. And during our tour, record all the rehearsals and the creative process of me creating a brand new trick, which will explain the courtyard conspiracy like a Sam the Bellhop.
sounds like a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
it's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be a lot of sleepless nights and fiddling with decks of cards and trying to
Absolutely.
figure out which, because they all have different ideas on what makes, a great magic trick, and to see where they were inspired and who inspired them, and to see the artist actually going, well, this is a cool thing. Yeah. And I think we got such a diverse cast, we've got Juan, who's almost 80 now, and like a superstar in Europe in magic. Alexandra Duvivier, a second generation, and a woman in magic is pretty male dominated. So it's great to have somebody who fooled the crap out of Penn and Teller and me too, which is really cool. Michael Vincent, his story. I met him. We were in South Africa, top Cape Town, and basically the same age, super great. We hung out together, and then a few years went by. He woke up one morning, and I don't know if you know the story, but he woke up and he was deaf. He just lost his hearing.
Tinnitus, yeah.
Yeah, and you think that would end a career, but his career has flourished beyond belief because he focuses on things and brings it together, and other senses have become more acute. And Richard Turner, speaking of people missing something, vision,
Yeah.
does that affect him in any way? No. And what motivates that man? Because he holds a deck of cards in his hands 24 hours a day.
Mm.
I really mean 24 hours. He claims one time making love to his wife Susan while shuffling.
That's dedication.
There you go.
Some
He'll
intense
be
dedication.
like a Scanio dying with a deck of cards in his hands.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Another thing I wanted to
Amazing
ask.
subjects, great places, really cool magic, a hidden mystery of a cold case, murder.
The places.
What more can a magician ask for in a movie?
Where all did the filming and the research and everything take you? I know you went to several places, obviously, to visit all these magicians. I don't know if they came to you, but I imagine you probably went to them. They've been all over.
Just embarking on that
making this.
journey soon.
We're just about to embark on it.
Yeah, the material that you saw in the trailer was just filmed for the trailer, so we're about to start the process in about 6 weeks. We do a short trip to the U.S. We go to San Antonio to visit Richard and Orlando to see a card factory and see the process of manufacturing. And then we come back for a couple of weeks. Shawn goes and does a couple of conventions abroad. And then we go meet up in London, and we go from London to Belgium, to Paris, south of France, Madrid, back to the south of France, and then back to London to fly home. So it's 17 days, 9 days of shooting, 8 days of traveling. It is going to be a whirlwind.
You guys are so busy.
I'm kind of, when he said a few conventions, I'm going to fly from, so it's Texas first, then Orlando, and then I go to Taiwan, from Taiwan to Belgium. From Belgium, I'll fly to, not Belgium, Bulgaria. Bulgaria. From Bulgaria, I'll fly to London, London to south of France, then up to Spain, back to France, back to London. And it looks like I'm probably going from London to Finland.
Oh, really? You might be coming home.
And this is all in the space of how long?
17?
17 days.
17 days. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's going to be insane.
That's intense, guys. I look forward to it, though. I can't.
Oh, yeah.
All of your hard work is be excellent. So.
Luckily, you're a magician.
The life that Shawn knows.
And crazy hours too, because there's like some places where we want to film, like at the London Magic Circle, that's got to be in the daytime. Then we want to interview Juan Tamariz, and Juan doesn't get up until like 6 p.m. So
I've heard.
he's a night owl, so we're going to be filming through the night with him, and then the next day we finish filming. We have to be on like an early morning flight to the next place. I said we're not going to sleep. We're just going to film Juan, and then we're going to go to an airport. It'll be great.
That sounds
Sleep on a plane.
really cool.
Yeah, you might have to pack a whole bag of 5-hour energy bottles.
I don't even drink Coca-Cola. I don't have. I've got built-in adrenaline. If it's magic, I'll just keep you all awake.
Okay.
Hey John, it's time. Let's see John.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to know each other very well. We're all going to be staying together in Airbnbs. So for those 17 days, we're going to, the entire crew of 5 of us, plus our local hires, are going to get to know each other very, very well.
It'll be like family.
Done some short tours with bands, and you definitely get that. What you're doing is going to be far more than anything I've embarked on.
We don't have the tour bus, though. We actually have like real places and real beds to go sleep in. So I think that's going to be an advantage.
We didn't have a tour bus either. We were poor. We were in a minivan. This is
because of the community. You know, they really have come behind us for this. We did a Kickstarter to fund it. It's all self-funded.
Yeah, I wanted to
which is
talk about the
crazy.
Kickstarter. I've looked at some of the numbers on the Kickstarter, and I mean, it looks like you had great support and just the stretch goals.
Guys like Chris Ramsey's become an executive producer.
Right on.
Shin Lim and
What's
Wes
the
Parker and tons of people. Ron Hudspeth. I think it's really reasonable to Gene Prantos. Like they can get in now in investing. It's like 10K and they get executive producers and they'll make money off the film afterwards. So we've got more people coming going, wait, I get to have my name in the credits and I make money off the movie. I'm like, yeah. Like,
can't beat it?
Yeah, the Kickstarter was definitely a wild ride. The first day was going really well, and I was just getting ready to go to bed, and then all of a sudden I checked my email one last time, and there's a notice from them, hey, congratulations, you're being funded, and I was like, this must be a mistake. But our biggest perk, our $10,000 trip to the Magic Castle with John went, and then we ended up at almost 300% of our initial goal. And as Shawn mentioned, a number of our backers have now come in and become equity investors in the film. So you get that executive producer credit, and the opportunity to share in net profits when we get to that stage. So those opportunities are still available. So if there's anyone out there who thinks that might sound like an interesting and fun thing to get me involved with, I'd certainly be happy to give you more details.
that was really cool. Jeremy Kaufman was our big buyer in, and he's from Chicago, and he found us on TikTok. And part of his perk was to go to the Magic Castle. So we went on November 1st, went to the Magic Castle the day after Halloween, had dinner with him at the Magic Castle. He brought his brothers. It was funny because one of his brothers, when we arrived, I met them in the lobby of the Magic Castle, and his brother goes, "That's the magician, this guy?" And Jeremy goes, "Yeah." He says, "I'd have been a lot more excited if you told me it was Shawn Farquhar." It was like,
Yeah, he thought he was just going to come see me, and obviously I'm not the main attraction.
it was funny. His brother was really cool. Is actually talking about coming in as a investor too, he said. So that's kind of neat. Yeah.
Now, what's the final word? I've been doing some research myself. What's the latest word on Neil Patrick Harris? Reach that goal?
Still haven't. And it's like 3 degrees of separation at this point. We're that close. I know when Neil hears about it, then he's going to love it because we're doing some animated sequences and we want it to be narrated. And for me, Neil is the guy. I have two. I'll be honest, I have two. Neil, because first, I really like him to be attached to the project because he's got a great spirit. And I met him the first time was like 1998. We came backstage in LA when I was doing a show, and I think we hit off. And then I never saw him. But it was a really fun event. Anyways, I'd love him. And if I don't get him, I want to convince. I haven't even asked yet. Oh, here, an exclusive. I'd love Teller to narrate.
Oh, that'd be great.
Think about it. Narrated by Teller.
Yeah,
That just alone
That's
is a
great.
credit. Is cool, right?
that would be fantastic. Either of those would be great.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, both would be great, but we're still working towards Neil, and hopefully he hears about it, and then because if he hears about it, he loves gaming, he loves mysteries, he loves
Made his own
magic.
deck.
It's right up his alley.
It's everything that he loves, all in one thing, right?
I think Teller would
Yeah.
be great but I don't
That
think
would be
most people
great.
if they didn't read it in the credits, I don't think they'd know that
Which
it was
makes it even
Teller,
better.
which would make it
Teller
great.
has a good narration voice though. I
Yes,
would say.
absolutely. I love Teller's voice. So you don't hear enough
He'd
of
suit
it.
it.
But I think that's
Yeah.
his plan. That's
Yeah.
part of his plan.
He's got a
I
great.
mean, he's such a great nonverbal actor. There's no reason why he shouldn't roll with that. But yeah, I absolutely believe that he would make a fantastic narrator. And yeah, please, I would love
I've
to see that
heard
happen.
Teller narrate before, so I can attest to the fact that he would.
Yeah, I think he'd be great at it. Absolutely, and I just love the comedy of it. It's coming up, narrated by Teller.
Right?
But Shawn, the next time you talk to either Neil or Teller, tell them about this Discord server.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can.
Maybe Neil could hop on here.
That reminds me even of a slight aside. This is the first time we've been quote unquote face to face, Sean, and I thanked you before, but I contacted you a while back to borrow your Flop Force teach on this server.
I remember that.
That was
that
me.
was on this server.
Yeah,
Okay.
and So thank you again and welcome.
I appreciate what you just said because I've been staring, going, I know this dude. We hung out together. I don't know where, but we've talked, and now
Yeah.
I know exactly. Yeah.
And it went over
Oh, yeah,
great.
Great application too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay is one of the admins on this server, as a matter of fact.
It's a
So
small
yeah,
world.
It is.
but yeah, he can ban all the baddies that come on here.
But anyway, back to our topic. One thing I wanted to add that I haven't heard you guys speak too much is when you were doing the research for the court card cold case, and then also or doing research for any of the just the bare history of cards in general and magicians and that history. Did you find any crossover in that time period where it's all going on? What was the role of cards as a magic conjuring tool in those times, or was that even a thing at that you're doing magic?
We were doing magic with cones and balls and knives.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but I'm not a historian, so I wasn't sure of the dates and the crossover.
Yeah, I'd like to know when the first card tricks were actually performed, and they don't really say that in history. I've got a half a dozen books of the history of cards, playing cards, just as, and then I've got dozens of PDF file ones on them. But we picked the best books there were to devour through them. And it's funny because you can see a lot of them are repeating what the other person said and changing it just slightly. But then I found like writings by like a Franciscan monk about playing cards, and it's totally different.
Right.
And you can see it seems more accurate and real, but it didn't play to the narrative that the other ones had, so they kind of just abandoned them.
Yeah, I think, I mean, a part of like what I'm hoping people walk away from is like a new appreciation of cards, because like the history is pretty long and fascinating, and all the different ways they've been used over the years, for like centuries in pre-literate societies, where people didn't have a lot of papers that wasn't available. The idea that there's a back on the card is a fairly new one. So for centuries there was nothing on the back of the card. It was just a blank piece of paper. And so that was actually a really useful thing for most people who didn't have access to paper. And so it became just like a common way of like leaving notes, or like an IOU for someone, or like one of the things that we talked about in the film. In the Netherlands in the 1800s, there was a tradition that if a mother couldn't take care of her infant and wanted to drop them off at an orphanage, if she left a full playing card with the child, that meant that she had no intention of coming back to the kid. But if she tore it in half and left half of the card and kept half for herself, that meant that one day she was kind of reserving the possibility of coming back and being able to prove her motherhood by matching the two halves of the card together to show that she was the actual person that dropped off the infant. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating all the different ways the cards have, apart from like the obvious gaming kind of things, have kind of become ubiquitous in our culture and our culture across the world.
Yeah, it was used as currency in the first adoption papers.
The original Turner restored card.
Yeah.
Now, also, as far as I've read lots of conflicting accounts of how playing cards and tarot cards cross over history. What did you find as far as that goes?
Go ahead.
What's okay?
I was going to say, tarot, I think, were sort of an extension of the standard deck. And so like the original decks weren't 52 cards, they were much larger, and all the tarot characters were just were intensely forged games. And the idea that you could use them for fortune telling or prognostication, I think only came like a century or two after they started showing up as gaming cards.
Yeah. They originally started as, they weren't meant for fortune telling. They were actually designed as a playing thing. And then it went from an upper arcane to the lower arcane down to the 52 cards that we use today. And that all kind of took place back in the time when art and mathematics were kind of blending together, which tells you things like that, there's 52 weeks in a year and 52 cards in a deck, and the 4 seasons, 4 suits, the 13 cards in each one, which make for the 13 lunar cycles.
They loved numerology in those days.
Yeah, you start looking at the design on the playing card and where the pips are and how it is all algebraically put in together and designed. It's pretty crazy.
It is. stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the,
I remember learning about how playing cards have a lot of similarities to the Gregorian calendar. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
it's very cool. And you start looking at the people who designed the cards and at the times, and where our king died, won't say murdered, but he was, where our king died, there's also a famous person buried there. And he was an artist that was very much into the mathematical stuff. Um, and he would have passed before the playing cards we're talking about, but his students would have been still around that area. Da Vinci is buried there. Yeah,
wow.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well known for hiding, messages and codes in his art.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, and also with the tarot, as far as the cold case, is there any remnants of any of that mystery in the tarot art? You see, I know a lot
Art
of stuff
totally
changed.
changed from the tarot.
Yeah.
When it went to Rouen in France, there's different regions. So France wasn't all together at that point. There were different regions, and they were slowly being brought together under a king who, attacked an area and would like kill off the father, marry the wife, become, ruler of the areas, that sort of thing. When these playing cards were made, it was basically new art being applied to the cards, and so the designs changed, and that's where you get to see, these wonderful little hidden trinkets in them. Everything for the coronation of a king. We just saw, King Charles' coronation, and now there's a scepter, there's an orb, there's the crown, and all that stuff. It's all hidden. Oh, sorry. It's all hidden.
Scared away, man. Gotta say something for the movie.
It's all there. Go look. We'll spend the next 2 months while we're filming looking at playing cards going, what the heck?
I know I want to ask so many questions, but I don't want to ruin anything or cross any lines. There's so much I want to know.
This what always annoys me when magicians put out the vanity decks now and they put their own faces on the cards, and I'm like, whatever. You're mucking with history, dude. Stick. Have you noticed that any playing card company can use all that art because nobody knew who made the art?
Can't be
I was
copyrighted.
actually going to ask about that. Yeah.
Only the Ace of Spades and the Jokers are copywriting with Bicycle and Hoyle and all those. None
Correct.
of
Yeah, that and
face
the
cards-
backs.
Yeah, and the back, because the back is relatively new. But the faces of them, they're carte blanche. Anybody can use them because they can't prove where they got them from.
Exactly.
Now with the art, Shawn,
Cool.
are-
And then it hasn't changed from the 1400s to today.
with the art, do we? Of course, I'm sure the film will clear this up more, but do we think that it's more of like a lot of cultural symbology and things like that of things that were going on at the time, or was this an artist like trying to deliver a message? Like
It's
for
an
real?
artist trying to deliver a message. Back in that day, very few people read.
Yes.
People,
Yeah.
they,
For the
they weren't
elite.
able to read. You either were the knight and you were the firstborn, or you became a monk and you learned to read and do taxation.
Right.
That's basically the two groups. And these people that couldn't read needed to have the stories told to them, which is why we have stained glass windows in churches.
Yeah.
It was their way of showing the picture and telling the stories so people could see them. And that's why all these artists, Raphael, Leonardo, all made these beautiful paintings to tell a story. But because they didn't always believe in the story, they hid stuff in the story so that others could see the other story. And in what a more innocuous place than at that time, playing cards were the new rave. Everybody, we have to have them. And if you could have the intelligent people looking at the playing cards as a toy and the unintelligent people being told the real story behind them, that's pretty cool.
This is all really cool. I've been waiting and I'm still waiting. I can't wait. This is good stuff. But like I said, I don't want to force you into any spoilers. I've asked the questions that I want to ask. I'm sure that some of these other guys have some questions they'd love to ask as well. I'm gonna take a seat back and just hear what everybody else has to say. Maybe you guys have some. Come on.
I have something to say. So, Shawn, this conversation reminded me a lot about your brilliant routine, Shape of My Heart. Talking about telling a story, right?
Yeah.
That's a great example.
Thanks.
And I think, and I remember watching the Real Magic magazine issue where you talked about this routine. Could you explain some of that story for anyone who may not be aware of it? Because it's
Yeah.
great.
I think it's a fun story. I was poor. Yeah, we were poor. Lori and I used to go to Blockbuster across the street and buy movies out of the bargain bin. And 2/3 of them were like subtitle ones. And back then it was great. TVs, you used to have these knobs on them. You could widen the TV and stretch it. So you could actually turn off the subtitles by just making it a little bit bigger and they go off. And then we'd make up our own stories for the movies. Which is really great. And it'd be really funny. It's like two guys sword fighting. I'm going to push you off the cliff. And then he would. And we go, holy crap, we got that one. There was a movie came out with Luc Besson and Natalie Portman called The Professional. It had a different name in French, but we watched the movie. It was good. Creepy.
Oh,
But
Leon
good.
the Professional, was it?
Leon.
Yeah.
That was it, Leon. And then it was called The Professional. And so when the movie ends, the title credits, the music was Sting singing this song. And while Lori was popping popcorn, I was like, that's a really cool song. And I rewound it at VHS back then, rewound, got a deck of cards, rewound. Lori comes in the room with popcorn. I said, watch this. I do this. She says, we're not watching the other movie. I'm like, nope, this is what we're doing. It's like,
Change of
I have
plans.
this terrible karma because I didn't return the movie because there wasn't a way to copy back then. And so they were copy protected and I needed that music and it didn't exist yet. Sting's album wasn't out there. It was just in this movie. So I just kept it and I would have returned it, but it got really expensive. Back then, returning a video was really expensive. Yeah. So I kept it. And I really feel bad about it because Blockbuster went bankrupt. And when it went bankrupt and they were gone and there was just the stuff inside the store still, I went up and I put the DVD, the VHS, I put it through the slot and closed and walked away going, okay, I feel better now.
You could have saved Blockbuster, Shawn.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It was so cool. And I used to use it just for myself. I would play it after I got a recording of it. I would just play it. And when I lived on cruise ships, it was like my meditation thing. And one time drunk, I was on the Norwegian Dream. I did it in the cabin for some other people who were watching. And this guy named Jason Potter, he was the TV guy. And he went off to tell the cruise director. And they came down the next day and said, Shawn, we have a plan. Jason's going to hold this giant camera on his shoulder. We're going to lower the screen down that we use for the movies. And we want you to do that trick as part of a variety show. And I was like, sure. It was a weird day too. We were going past, it was an afternoon show and we're going past the Rock of Gibraltar. And just before I was to go on, they announced we're getting close to the Rock of Gibraltar. And my entire audience got up and left to go watch the Rock of Gibraltar. So I'm standing there in my show suit watching the Rock of Gibraltar going, it's just a rock. What the hell? And then we went back inside. I sat down on the stool and I did my first performance of Shape of My Heart. And then it became a part of my show. And it was in my show forever. Closed my shows for decades. It's just a beautiful song. Really cool. Eventually won, Grand Prix in 2009 with it in Beijing, China. I have a issue now that I have what they call micro tremors in my hand. You won't be able to see it because, well, maybe you can. They're slight. Yeah, I've had operations on my wrist now. But anytime a camera zooms in, it looks like I'm doing this. So I try not to do it that much anymore. I love it, but I've chosen new magic that I can do at Hidden Wonders that doesn't allow, nothing has to be on a camera. So I can hide my little tiny tremor. It's funny. On Friday night, there was a couple in the second row, VIPs, and I looked at the lady and said, you look really familiar. Do I owe you money? And she says, I x-rayed you once. I said, my right hand. She goes, how do you remember that? It's the only part of me that's been x-rayed. It's like, it was so funny. Yeah.
I run into somebody who x-rayed me once, and maybe I do owe him money.
Yeah. In Canada, it's free.
Oh, I know. That's why I gave it to me and wasn't like, well, maybe you do, because no, you don't. It's different.
The story gets even better. She bought the gift. It was a Christmas gift for her boyfriend. And she said, we're going to a magic show. That's all she told him. And I guess he's a massive fan of mine who knows everything I do and has bought lots of my magic stuff. And he didn't know when he came into the building. He didn't know until he saw the two Penn and Teller trophies on the bookcase before walking to the theater. He goes, I'm pretty sure I know who I'm seeing. And afterwards, he's like, this is the coolest. My girlfriend's the best. And it was like, any other questions?
Come on, guys, you got Shawn Farquhar. Just
Um,
waiting.
I
Ask that.
apologize if this is putting you too much on the spot, but since we're talking about cards, maybe you could perform a little card trick for us.
He wants to see something. I like
Yeah,
this.
of your choice. Of your choice.
He wasn't prepared for that at all.
No.
This crazy?
Oh, that's great.
I asked somebody to cut the cards. No, this is a professional deck of cards. The reason they're professional is, you go to the pool hall. When you go to the pool hall, you see that guy who takes and screws in his pool cue. You've seen those guys, right?
Guy's
They're
a
always
hustler.
better. They're the hustlers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Amazing.
That was great.
Deck of cards.
What?
That's
Take
amazing.
my money.
Got me twice in like 5 seconds.
Oh, that was fun.
Oh,
I have to say that fixing the film with Shawn is a way more fun. Like I've fixed projects before, and you have like 10 minutes to grab someone's attention and convince them of why they want to get involved in your project. But doing it with him is a real treat because he does stuff like that. He vomits cards during our presentations. It's a really very very useful skill to have.
Nothing is funnier than when the person comes on there. We're in like a film festival, and they go say, "And you are?" I said, "Oh, I'm Shawn. I'm Shawn Farquhar, and I'm the magician." They're like, "Ah!" It's like just
Every single time I see you do that, you do it so beautifully.
thank you.
Like, man.
You guys seen Coin in a Bottle? Where you put the coin in the bottle?
Yeah.
They all use those coins that fold up. Not like a solid coin like this. This is way better, right? Like when it's solid.
damn.
I've seen the ball in the bottle. Gets even
What
weirder.
the hell? That was
Brilliant.
Did
I think
not see
my
that
favorite
coming.
moment with Shawn so far, with all the incredible things that he's done, is like I think the first time that we hung out, went to a restaurant, and he was doing some things for the waitress and the people sitting table beside us. And when those people eventually got up and left, as they were going, Shawn just grabbed the straw out of his drink and disappeared up his nose. Didn't say anything, and we sat there for like another hour or something. And it's not like the straw ever reappeared. He casually pulled it out from something, like it was just gone. And that's just the reality that you live in when you're in his sphere. That just crazy shit just happens.
I never, we never actually put the level of value on magic. We as a magician, we do the trick for a while, then move on, do a trick. Just recently, a student of mine, Gabriella Lester, was on Penn and Teller's Fool Us. It was a great episode. She hung up down in a straitjacket while Penn did flashcard math. If you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it. It's great. In her opening segment, which I didn't get any input in, it opens with them saying, "How'd you get started in magic?" She said, "Oh, a magician came to my school, and when I asked for an autograph on my cast, he shoved the Sharpie up his nose. And then they showed the footage, and it was me shoving a Sharpie up my nose." She said, "I went home and said to my dad, that's what I want to do for a living."
You guys are
Not
pretty full there. I mean, that's like years of like ramming things up there, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. First you start with like Q-tips, and then you work up to nails.
Yeah, but just make sure that it doesn't poke out through your eye socket.
Yeah,
That
that would be bad. I always wanted to do like a card stab by putting the nail up and then blowing.
Like it.
Yeah,
So
that
speaking-
sounds like something Sylvester the Jester would do.
Yeah. Danny and I had the opportunity to tour together, Sylvester the Jester, Danny Sylvester. We toured 3 months together in China. It was Henry Evans, David Stone, Sylvester the Jester, and me. That's quite an eclectic group of magicians doing 1,500-seat theaters every second day. So we would drive for a day on a bus, do a show the next day, get on the bus and drive for another day, do a show and theater after theater after theater, sold out crowds. And watching Danny perform was insane because his ideas are, he needs gunpowder. And I said, how did you get the gunpowder into China? He said, oh, I just hid it in the Sharpies. What? He said, yeah, I broke open the Sharpies, poured the gunpowder in, then closed up the Sharpies. That's a thing I learned from my Al Qaeda friends, he said. I was like, what?
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's my quote. Yeah. I didn't check the lighting when we came in. It's okay, right? Does that look red?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back here almost looks black, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Mhm.
It actually does.
Here it looks red.
Oh my
And here it looks black. If it looked black here, that'd be like a trick, and this would look red, right?
Whoa.
Just
Uh,
grab my desk, I'm noticing.
Sean Mex had asked in the chat. We were speaking of magic history movies alike. Have either of you or both of you seen the new Erdnase film? And if
Yeah,
so,
Looking for
what did you think
Erdnase.
about that?
Looking for Erdnase. John has seen it. I haven't had the time yet. I got it ready to go.
Yeah, I watched it. I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, I like it. Has a similar kind of vibe of trying to explore because they pass out parse out different theories on who he was and kind of go through all the different. So yeah, I'm interested. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about Erdnase because that's the expert at the card table. So obviously, this is an influential and important book in card magic history. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting and taking sort of the dramatic reenactment approach of hiring or getting actors to portray all these characters and everything. Yeah, it's an interesting timing to have that kind of come out while we're developing this. But I think it just sort of speaks to a zeitgeist of interest in the field and people being curious about to kind of like get past the surface and pulling rabbits out of hats and getting into the kind of the meatier, more interesting part of magic.
Excellent. I think it's great to see two movies coming out about card magic. Said that there's more interest out, continuing trend because definitely
Yeah.
movies that I want to watch.
I hope it builds an audience. And the more movies we get, a few years ago, the IBM did a film festival during the convention. And we're hoping to do it again because I just love to have Lost in the Shuffle as like one of the films featured in the film festival.
Would be fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking about this, I'm going to presume that you're aware that R. Paul Wilson is a filmmaker, and he made a magic film, I believe. Have you ever thought about collaborating with him?
I love him and giant fan of his. First time we met was in an airport in London or something on our way to Schiphol Airport. I would love to work with him on stuff. His Magic Box film, that short film, is just adorable. One of my favorite pieces of film ever. Maybe in the future we'll do something. I just, can't speak high enough about him. If I'd had more people I could have asked, I would have asked probably Roy Walton first to be in the film. Of course,
Oh,
Roy
wow.
passed away.
That would have been
Yeah. Here's a great moment. So my first time going into Tam Shepard's, where Roy was a little magic shop, I walked in and there was Roy demonstrating for two people, and I was like, "This is the best." I stood back and I watched, and when it was over, he sold them the stuff, and they left, and I sat there very quietly waiting, and he came over and said, "And so you're Shawn Farquhar?" And my jaw just about dropped. I was like, "You know who I am?" And he said, "It's on the poster behind you," and there was my lecture wall. It's like,
Nice.
wow, he knows he did that now.
He knows my name.
Yeah, but he came to my lecture, and I opened the lecture with, I talk fast. I apologize. If you have any questions, raise your hand. I'll be happy to answer them. But before we start, I have one question. The third row. You're Roy Walton, right? And he goes, yes. I said, follow-up question. Why are you at my lecture?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, Paul's great. Such a clever man.
we had a question in chat for you, John. Along the way so far, or along the way in the future when you're making the film, have you learned any magic yourself, or do you plan on learning? Keep it mystery.
I've been waffling on this. I think my initial thing was really not wanting, because I think, one of the cool things about being a filmmaker or being, especially doing documentaries, is that you kind of get to immerse yourself in a world for a certain amount of time, and maybe not become an expert, but really like spend a lot more time learning about it, reading about it than you would have otherwise, and that's certainly the case here. I think going into it, my answer was no. Like I didn't want to lose any of the kind of just layman wonder and awe that just comes with just being blown away by things over and over again. Um, and then I was like, well, it's also kind of silly to be, have access to some of the best magic minds in the world and not learn anything. Um, so I think I've kind of set myself up just to kind of start with just card handling. So I've been working on my Pharaoh, and trying to get
Good.
that and
Awesome.
do basic things like that.
It's a hell of a place to start.
John has a few decks of cards at his house because we produced our own deck called Lost in the Shuffle,
They
which
look
is really
gorgeous.
cool.
They look so
And,
good.
and they were,
Oh,
if you haven't bought one, buy one. The quality of the card, we found a card manufacturer in Taiwan, and the card stock is soft, crushed, almost the same as what old stud cards. And the color red we used is the old stud card red. So it's really nice, kind of a rich color to it. And they faro like butter because they're not
about that.
from above and they're not cut from below. They're cut at the same time. So it makes a rolled edge, the way playing cards used to be made.
Oh,
It's
so
the
is that
1943 Heidelberg press that they're using.
is that
Maybe more butter like in someone else's hands. I'm hard butter still right now.
Cold
You'll
butter.
get there. You'll get there.
so
Yeah,
is that
I think my biggest problem right now is just been finding the time, because it's like organizing all this and putting this all together has been a pretty all-consuming kind of thing. So maybe by the time the film's ready to be released and we're doing our tours, I'll open up to Shawn.
I think that's
I'll
great.
help you while we're out there doing it. I had a young lady come to the show yesterday, 18, who she said she was into cardistry for 2 years and then kind of gave it up, but she'd bought a deck of the cards. And I said, try giving a pharaoh. She says, I'm not able to do it. And I said, just cut. She was able to cut to the middle. She touched them. They went, oh, Lord, look at that. I just did a perfect pharaoh. I said, there you go. And I was like, yeah.
I think it's great,
You really
John, that you're open to learning a little bit. It's because it's fun. You do, like you said, you have an opportunity to tap into, even if lightly or briefly, some of the greatest minds, art, craft, or whatever you consider it, that we're part of. And you can still learn a little bit and still have your paint off by so much. There's so many pools you can stay out of.
Memory supposed to be on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Just listen to all your reactions right now, just so the couple things that Shawn just showed you tells me that experience.
Lost him.
Shawn, why did you make him
Is that
disappear?
just me or
Magic.
Magic.
And when you look at there, somebody put in the chat a picture of the Lost and Shuffle cards. We included a couple of bonus cards that are illustrations of some of the historical characters in it, and it's fun because I get to use those cards for part of the presentation and the creation of the magic trick that I'm going to do for the end of the movie. By putting those things in, I hedged my bet that I'd be able to somehow make like a king turn into the actual picture portraits of them and things like that to make it really fun.
They're really nice.
they look great? I'm so
really
looking
pretty.
forward to all of this. Thank you
I'm
for
going to have
doing
to
this.
disappear. I have a show this evening. I didn't originally have a show this evening, but my students, I'm giving them the opportunity to. I still have my own little theater, Hidden Wonders, and I wanted to give them the opportunity. So they're doing a thing tonight called Cabaret of Wonders. And I'm going to be the person collecting the tickets at the doors and selling the popcorn and introducing my students to the world, the audience. It's going to be fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
They're also a little terrified, which is really great.
That's a good motivator.
That's right. I told them you can practice as much as you want to, but until you actually step in front of the audience, you don't know if you have a good trick or not.
So true.
Sometimes even when you step in front, you're not sure you have a
still,
good trick.
you still got to do it a few times, maybe.
I did one, it sucked. Linking finger ring. The first time I tried it, I've had it in my collection for decades, and I've waffled on doing it. And just maybe 3 months ago, I did it for the first time, and it bit. Like, it was really not good. But I sat on, I figured out what wasn't good about it, and and I changed it. And now it's a stop the show moment because I was actually able to do it in front of an audience and see what didn't work and what does work.
I think
Yeah.
that's part of, I mean, and not for everyone, but for me especially, tinkering with the smallest things in an effect and analyzing. That's so much fun for my
Get it
mind.
Well, I'm going to apologize and say bye. Maybe I have some more questions for John, but thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you
And,
so much
thanks
for
very
doing
much.
this and doing the
If you
film
don't
in
follow us
general.
on Lost in the Shuffle, we got a mailing list on the website, so you can go to that lostintheshuffle.movie.
Film.
Film. I lied. As soon as
Yes.
I said I knew it was wrong,
I
John.
even caught it. I remember.
Yeah.
And
Lostintheshuffle.film.
just threw my email address in the chat there. If anyone wants to reach out, interested in getting involved, or just want more information, or just want to chat, please drop a line. Yeah. Sorry for all the technical difficulties.
It's no worries. This was
No
great.
worries. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for all the cool questions.
Thank you
We'll
both
see you again.
so
You
much.
know I'm busy.
It was an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Meet in person. I'll be the guy that looks like this.
Well, fortunately for you, I'm in the east coast of Canada, so maybe that'll be a possibility one day.
Which province?
Nova Scotia.
Ah, my first girlfriend, Cape Breton.
Nice.
Second one was in Dartmouth. I used to live in Summerside.
Oh, nice.
I grew up in Summerside, PEI. Google that place, guys. Population, it said 10,000, but it was actually about 8,000. And it never changed. Every time a girl got pregnant, another guy left town.
Oh no.
Well, yeah, next time I'm on the
Good
ferry.
luck with the show, Shawn. Thank you so much.
Mary, Queen of Abaguit.
All right, champ.
All right.
And John, you as well. Thank you so much. I'm
Thanks a lot.
looking very forward to seeing what you guys come together with. I'm just anxious.
Yeah, I'd encourage people to head over to, like Sean mentioned, head over to the website. You can sign up for our newsletter, follow us on our social channels, start production like March, April, and aiming to have the film all done for like November of this year. So hopefully coming to a theater and magic convention near you soon.
And thanks again. I can't thank you enough. This has been great.
Cheers. Thank you.
Hey, buddy. Appreciate